Okay.
We can just say that he went out. Probably.
That's it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the show will commence in 5 minutes. While you are waiting, please hit the like button and share the video link.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Hit the like button, share the video.
Please like and leave a comment and share this video.
I'm just looking around. We'll go to the next one after this.
Only 3 minutes until the start. Only 2 minutes until the start.
Please like and subscribe to this channel today. And don't forget to share it and hit that thumbs up. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the awesomeness is about to start in 1 minute.
Yeah, well.
Ladies and gentlemen, the show is about to begin. Grab a drink and a snack, sit down and enjoy watching the show. Don't forget to comment, like the video, and share it to others.
Hey everybody, welcome to the live show 56, coming to you live from Minsk. And there's Duke on my left, and we've got a guest just in the back ready to go, Alex from China. And we'll just grab him in a minute.
He doesn't look Chinese.
He doesn't look Chinese. So hang on, we'll just grab him in. Wrong screen, of course. There he is. Hey Alex, how you going?
Hello, gentlemen.
Can you hear us?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we
Very
can hear
good.
you perfectly.
You sound better than we do.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
There you go. There he is on the screen, big.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank
How
you
was your
so much.
day?
Pretty good. Just Mr. Patrick Lancaster just walked out the door to the store, so we're all good.
Yeah,
Oh.
I watched your live show today. It was good.
Ah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's midnight here in China, but very nice time of the year. Weather's good, and what a pleasure to join you, gentlemen, tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, big
Yeah.
thanks. We really appreciate
Pleasure
it.
to have you.
My pleasure.
So let's start. Do you want to know anything about Belarus at all?
I visited that country probably around 2013, 2014. Actually, I had a fantastic time when I was there. My wife's Lithuanian.
Mhm.
So I spent probably 3 or 4 years in Vilnius as well,
Mhm.
in the good days of Vilnius, not the changing days of today.
Mhm.
And a wonderful city, but a great area, great people, and always had a special part in my heart for Belarus. Lovely country for sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I was in Vilnius over the weekend. Have to go
How
there.
are things there?
Gay parade was on. But
Got
yeah, well,
There was
yeah.
an LGBT parade when I was in Riga. Maybe they have them every day. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I've got, because of the money here, I've got to go there every month and get cash out. So it's a bit of a problem getting
okay.
money. That's the problem.
Mhm.
Well, you can get small amounts out because they've restricted the ATMs here on this side because to stop people getting a debit card from some organization in Europe and then pulling cash out to foment a coup or something. So you only can pull out about £125 every week on a foreign card.
Mm.
So
That's going to take some time to work through the systems here. I mean, we, being here in China, we can at least say that the banking sectors here have insulated themselves in case other places around the world or other countries around the world get any ideas to restrict or block or pull the SWIFT on it. The Chinese have seen that. Some good news on that front, though. I think we will see an acceleration of some of these Chinese banks, and this is a good thing, move in towards Belarus and Russia, which you will see, as good or even equal banking systems of what the Americans have. And what I mean by that is, let's be honest here. If you're going to go to Europe and you're coming from Russia, if they let you in, that is, to Europe, you're going to be faced with some struggles with your currency. But if you use the Russian ruble in China, well, it's business as usual here. In fact, the ruble is very well respected. And of course, trade between these two countries here, China and Russia, is around 280 billion and growing. So we will see that sector grow. I think that will go all across, through Belarus, and you will see that the American banks that used to dominate that part of the world are soon coming to an end.
Yeah, I think that's why the latest sanctions on Russian businesses and that are helping Russia is another way to get at the Chinese banks. I think it's like a sly way to stop them as well.
Let's elaborate. If you could elaborate on that.
Well, the latest sanctions is anybody. Well, they're going to try anybody that's helping Russia buy stuff and all that. They're going to put sanctions on, and I think that's also a way around to try and sanction the Chinese banks, but indirectly because they're helping as well.
That's a very good point. Let me just give you an idea, if I may, of how the financial sector works here in China. We're talking about a country that has invested in 153 other countries at the moment and growing with its One Belt, One Road. And this is a logistical chain, a logistical channel that not only invests in companies with roads, highways, ports, airports, but also into the banking industry. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's use a country like Nicaragua, for example. Beaten down, thrashed, sanctioned in the past, very turbulent history, and the Americans are no friends. But how is it that China, a country, manages to span all the way down to Latin America, South America, and support these countries in building infrastructure, channels, trains, railways, high-speed rails, airports, ferry terminals, and then also say, wait a moment, we need your business sector to survive. The good old days of bank managers are back in Nicaragua, where they are lending to people that are ambitious about the future, want to open a company, whether it's a laundromat or whether it's selling avocados or whatever. But the traditional banking is back in these countries where they used to have to come cap in hand to the International Monetary Fund for money. Well, the Chinese are saying, start lending to your citizens. We'll support. We'll be the backdrop of it. We won't get involved. Yes, of course, we're pumping billions into your economy. We understand there's going to be a risk. But if you hear from the Western media side will use the term of debt trap, getting these countries, impoverishing these countries. Out of 153 of these countries, I have failed yet to see any of them that have been thrown to the wall by China. Now, there has been some countries that have failed to pay back some of these loans. China has forgiven some of that. China has renegotiated that, just like any other business or just like any other company would run if it was lending money or borrowing money from a bank. Now, this also gives these countries a very good. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
This also gives these countries confidence on what has happened in the last 2 years or so to Russia. 16,500 sanctions, growing daily, pulled from the SWIFT banking system of the American banking system. Now, as of last Friday, the Moscow exchange cannot no longer trade dollars to rubles and euros to rubles. But it doesn't matter anymore. These countries have seen the blueprint. The blueprint is there. Russia definitely will not trust, and I would imagine other countries that are in support of it, Belarus, will not support this kind of bankrupt bully and beaten by the American playbook. It's over. It's long gone. The trust has sailed to sea, and it will never be seen probably in my lifetime. That relationship is broken. So there's a new kid in town. The new kid in town is the Chinese, and they always put geopolitical issues or internal conflicts between countries aside, and they do business. And that is now we are at the, I guess, an impasse where we're going to see de-dollarization, and you're going to be soon not really caring about what the ruble trades to the dollar, but what the ruble trades to the RMB. That is the headline that everyone, I think, should focus on. Back to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think the problem is that as far as the United States, even Rand Paul, I think I saw him saying this like a week or two ago, that the United States doesn't have the carrot anymore. All they have is the stick. So they're just going after everybody and punishing everybody for not doing trading with them. They're, like the U.S. doesn't have the stick on China. If everybody hasn't stopped and noticing that, they're trying to create the stick. What was it with Treasury Secretary Yellen was there and all that, and they're trying to threaten China, and it's not really working that well. And Ursula von der Leyen, that was very funny when she went there for her trip, and I think basically she had to find her own way to the airport or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. It's pretty funny. I really like that. But like I said, I've got a friend
Go ahead,
here.
sir.
He's a programmer, and he's
Mm-hmm.
learning management of some sort of a thing. Tiger, if you're listening out there, hello. And I'm not sure which company he works for, DJI or Huawei or whatever, but
Right.
He's very good, and he's from somewhere in central China, and I guess they have him set up in Shenzhen or something,
Mm-hmm.
that city, and yeah, it's people like that. He showed me some video of Shenzhen, and I'm thinking, wow, it's like
Yeah.
wow, it's like they're not showing this stuff in the United States, that these are super advanced cities, far beyond anything in the United States, and it's like, and the United States is supposed to compete against that? There's no way. And you can't imagine. The United States has just got a big military now, but everything else is just sunk way behind, and China is just way out there. It's there's just nothing to compare to anything with that anymore. You know, they're far beyond the
You,
U.S.
you talk about a city like Shenzhen. Shenzhen 30 years ago was a fishing village. Now it's the Silicon Valley of China with a population of 20 million plus.
20
Just
million.
out back my window here is Chongqing, a city of 34 million. It's part of it's ground zero to the One Belt One Road, which is
Hmm.
the ambition of China to connect nations across the world. Let's go into a little bit more detail on what the Americans are up against. The Americans, China doesn't want conflict. It's not in their DNA. They haven't been into a military conflict, and I guess you can call some of these small skirmishes on the Indian border a conflict that may get headlines once in a while, but since the 70s, they're not interested in that. It's a nation of 1.5 billion people. It's a nation that has party members. Almost 1 in every 14 people are a party member. Now, of course, if we use the term party member, the Western media gets freaked out about it, or even a lot of people that are maybe watching this program would say, well, Alex, we were born and raised and told that, China is big bad China, China bad, China bad, China bad. Um, and if you watch the headlines, well, let's use Maria Bartiromo as an example from Fox News. She will go out of her way to use the word communist, and they will drive that home to their Western audience: communist, communist, communist. But what they fail to understand is, and they will say to their audiences, well, people in China, they don't have a voice. Well, that's not true. Over 100 million of these people are party members. To become a party member is a great respect here. It's not like they give you millions of dollars. In fact, as party members, you donate part of your salary to the party. And if you do your math, well, if 110 or 115 million people are party member, it's a good opportunity to have a say in what goes on in the country. Now they say, well, okay, there's only 115, Alex, 115 million. True. But some of them are married. Some of them have kids. Some of them have grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, whatever. And by the time you do your mathematics on that, you're going to reach a very, very large number in the country that pretty much this country is like a company. And everybody's on board, okay, most everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And they understand that let's leave the big decisions to the experts. If you're going to, for example, let's say, is it okay if we talk about new energy vehicles? I'll give you an example about new energy vehicles. This, as a Canadian, I was born and raised to love a car with a big engine and, big petrol and big tires and American muscle and get that Mustang out on the road. In China, yes, they love their cars. They love their sports cars. There's Mercedes, there's Porsches on the street here. Plentiful. Okay, there's no beaters on the street here. In fact, they just don't allow cars that are breaking down or polluting the environment here. Now, I'm going to try to just give you guys an example of when I moved to the city of Chongqing. This city of Chongqing 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, you couldn't see the sky. Impossible. It was a factory city. It was polluted. It was gray. It was dark. But now it's been under the control of the central government here. And they made it their mandate to clean this city up. And I'm going to tell you some pretty shocking stuff that's going on here that you just don't see and won't see in the Western media. Well, I would say probably 1 in 3 or maybe even 1 in 2 cars here are new energy vehicles. And you might say, well, Teslas? Sure, there's Teslas here. There's Teslas driving the streets. But the new energy vehicle market is not what we think it is in America, where we are told that garbage cars, cheap cars, burning cars, cars breaking down, unreliable, cheap Chinese product. Who cares about new energy vehicles? Well, I'll tell you how it changes people's lives. It's not about, they're not pushing these vehicles here on a Greta Thunberg stage. Okay. That's not their mandate. Their mandate, of course, there are some, I guess we'll call it 2 sides of the new energy vehicle market. But they're definitely not trying to say, okay, we're putting these cars on because all the other cars are polluting the environment and go by what we say. That's not the game plan here. The game plan here is the affordability of these cars. So some of these cars, now you're going to laugh at these prices, guys, and cut me off if I ramble on too much, but I really think it's important that we get into this.
2 seconds.
If you
in Belarus, just in the last 12 months, there's just been a massive increase in Chinese EVs here. New energy
wonderful.
Vehicles, just massive amounts, like just they're everywhere now here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to elaborate, and like I said, cut me off if I ramble on too much about this. But what I am seeing here within the automotive industry, and today I was at the new energy vehicle market with Patrick Lancaster. I won't give too much away on his videos, but 1 sec. Can you grab me a drink? Yeah. Thanks, guys. Sorry. So,
hi, Patrick.
There's something remarkable. Hi, Patrick. There's something. Let me ask you guys. Do you remember the first time you connected to the internet? Do you remember the first time you connected to the internet?
Yes. Late 80s, roughly.
Was it a life-changing moment?
Yes.
Yes, I would
mean,
say.
The first time I connected to the internet, it opened up and it answered a lot of lies that I was thinking differently. And what's going on here in the automotive industry is something magical. I'll give you an example. The taxi fleets here. Just wave to the boys. There he is.
Hello.
Hi, Patrick.
We'll see if I can get him. If he stays up late, I'll get him on the mic.
Okay.
So the interesting thing is in the new energy vehicle market is it starts with the taxi fleets. Now, before China got into the new energy vehicle market, oh boy, they had some serious meetings at top level, government level decisions. And they said, wait a moment, we are a big country. How are we going to get charging stations right across this nation? Well, how the political parties are done, basically it's similar to the American political party where you have the House and then the Senate. So the House, we'll call it the CPP-CC, and the NPC we'll call that the Senate. Okay, so it is one party, but it's built on two sessions. So the House will come up with some ideas. They'll pass it on to the Senate, but the Senate here, the NPC party or the NPC, is 30% academics. So people that haven't been voted in or anything like that, they're professionals. So they will evaluate something like, give you an example, new energy vehicles. We got to build 300,000 charging stations across the nation. How can we do that? Well, that idea comes from, we'll call it the House, goes to the Senate. The Senate or the NPC party here says, okay, wait a minute. We need some scholars here, some smart people to figure this out. Now they'll say, okay, before we build this infrastructure, we need to know that we will have a universal plug-in system for cars across the nation. So all cars must comply or at least have two possibilities to charge that car, one a universal charge and one whatever the company wants, okay? Then it's agreed. Then the licensing is given for the automotives and says, okay, go and do it, guys. Now, most companies here pretty much have open patents. They will allow and collaborate with other car companies. In fact, at the auto show today, 90% of all the tires on the cars were North American tires or European tires. Michelin, Goodyears, Bridgestones, Pirellis. So the Americans say they're being left out of the game. Bullshit, okay? Though they got 4 tires on every bloody new energy vehicle that is leaving this country. Basta. There's no arguing with that. So then the Chinese company came up with something very clever. They did a survey with a lot of young students between the age of 18 to 24, and they asked them, what is a price range that you think affordable car that you could use to commute, not long distance, but you could commute? And a number at 4167 came up. That was the average number, whether it was 6,000, 4,000, whatever. It came up with 4167. And that seems to be a magical number where some of these car manufacturers start some of their entry-level cars at. It's $4,167 US dollars. Now, the taxi fleets, you have, I'm sure you guys have similar, like Didi or similar to Uber in your country, right? So what the Chinese government says, okay, we want these taxi fleets to grow massively because we don't necessarily need the average person, everybody to have a car. We can do ride sharing. So how do they entice people to get into the taxi? Well, normally that's quite a big investment, right? To buy a car. So the taxi companies work with the car manufacturers. The car manufacturers work with the banking system. And the banking system works with the government. And the government says, listen, you have a new guy that gets into a car. He's an entrepreneur. Making money in China is not a bad, it's not bad, okay? Money here is like a religion, okay? Whether people think the communist China is, in the Stone Ages, it's not. It's one of the most capitalistic countries I've ever seen in the world, period. So you will see the Chinese companies work together. So if a new guy drives a taxi, and let's say he hardly makes any money the first month, well, electronically, that will get back to the banking system, the lender, and the car manufacturer, and they will say, okay, let's keep him at a tier 1 payment system. And let's not move him off that tier 1 payment system to pay back for the car because he's got to eat, he's got to pay rent. So as he builds up his business, the amount of payback starts to increase, and then it hits a comfortable level. Now, we got to remember,
incredible.
This is a country Sorry,
That's incredible that they,
it is.
based on
So
your ability to pay, in other words, as long as
right,
you're not a lazy
and
guy
then
that
they
just sits
also
around.
exactly, and then they look at other social things that may affect people's lives, like people in the hospitality industry. Well, if you're
Seasons.
working in a major U.S. city or a major Canadian city, and you're working in the hospitality system, after 10 o'clock in the evening, it's quite hard to use local transit to get home.
Hmm.
So you're either, if you're a female waiter or something, bartender or something late at night, first, your security is at risk. Second, if you take a taxi in any major American city or North American city, it's going to cost you an arm and leg. Definitely not something somebody in the
Hmm.
service industry wants to pay on a daily basis. So they keep their metro systems open pretty much around the clock here. And also a metro system that end to end in a city of 32 million, which is bigger than New York, Chicago, Los Angeles times 2 combined.
Wow.
That's the size of the city I'm in right now.
Incredible.
Now, from end to end, from metro line to metro line, the maximum you're going to pay is 80 cents. That's it. Okay. Now, people will say, well, the monorail system or the subway system is losing money there, Alex. Yeah, of course. They're not here for profit. Okay. And the government understands that. So it understands that it needs to get its workers to work safe. And here's another interesting thing. They understand that alcohol or tobacco or whatever, these are some things. And yes, you can drink alcohol in China. Yes, you can go out to bars in China. You can smoke cigarettes in China, all that stuff. But here's something interesting that I think you gentlemen might not know is there is a zero policy on drinking and driving in this country. Zero tolerance. Okay. You get caught drinking and driving, you're going to get a criminal record and probably go to jail, or at least if you're lucky, you might escape that. But people know the laws here. Drinking and driving is absolutely a no-go. But if we look in the Western societies, we would say $80 for a taxi, or maybe I can get home. Maybe I can just get home. Or, hey, Bobby, just drive home. It's okay. Or, oh, I think I'm okay. And when I was in Canada last time, everybody after 2 beers, that was it. The party was over. Everybody was paranoid that they didn't want to pay, $50, $60 to get in a taxi, or there's no designated drivers, and that was it. Well, here's what Shannon does, guys. You drive your car down, and let's say you meet some friends and you want to have a good time, but your car's downtown. Well, almost all taxi companies are equipped with micro e-scooter drivers that are around pretty much every, call it, entertainment part of the city. And they will drive these little electronic bikes that can fold up and go into a trunk of a car. So if I had too many drinks last night, and let's say I didn't even plan on drinking, and I went out and I drove my car and I went down and I had a few drinks, a little bit more than I should, I go on my app, and for, let's say I would pay, I think it's hard to pay over $5 anywhere in the city here for a taxi, even to go about 15 kilometers. Let's say I needed a designated driver. There's hundreds of them. Within minutes, a driver will come on a bike. He will fold it. He will put it in the trunk of your car. He will drive you home to your house and deliver your car in your driveway and take his bike out of the trunk, wish you a good night to make sure that you got home. And that's it. Because the government understands that, drinking is, the French, it's a bit different. In France, they educate the kids to have wine with the parents. It's a little bit different culture. China here understands that some people may not know their drinking limit, but they have a necessity there that will prevent them. And everybody knows that this is available to the public. So this is in every major city across China. Just to let you guys know, there's over 662 cities that have, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I know at least 100 cities have over 1 million people in it. So, and then there's probably about 20 to 25 mega cities with a population of over 10 million. So these are kind of, I don't want to call them social experiments, but it's a government trying to understand how it can move with society. It's a tough job for somebody to run a country of 1.5 billion.
No kidding.
And yeah, I'm open for questions, guys. Sorry to ramble on, but
No, it's fine. It's fine.
No, it's just fascinating.
yeah, we were just listening here.
Well, actually, one of the benefits was, that, I mean, you're just exactly why I wanted to have you on here too, is because, we hear just negative, even Tucker Carlson, and it's like,
yeah,
you hear a lot of the truth about Tucker Carlson, but he's China, and everybody is like anti-China.
Yeah.
And us living here in Belarus, we know the truth and what they say about Belarus out there. You think there's a mad dictator and he's lining people up on the wall and getting them machine gunned and whatever they say about the country here, and it's like, but you come like in Belarus and it's just so amazing. I was living in the Caribbean, and everybody, oh, paradise, nice weather, which, of course it was. Sidewalks are bad, holes all over in the streets and everything. Murders, it's the second biggest murder capital in the world, and people, snatching, if you wear a gold chain, I don't wear anything like that, but tourists or something, I mean, and it's scams, and it's just terrible. And it's only 110,000 people in the whole entire country. And but it's just, I can go on and on about that stuff, and then you come to Belarus and it's like you're walking around and it's like, I cannot believe where I'm at, what I'm seeing here. You see some guy and a woman walking, she's, in a nice summer dress, and they're just holding hands, they might have a child or something, and people just relaxing, and, guys with their kids on playgrounds, and nearly every apartment building has playgrounds and things like
which
that.
is no graffiti anywhere, no rubbish anywhere.
Yeah.
In the buildings, in the apartment buildings, like on every floor, people just leave their bikes. No one's going to steal them.
Yeah, and it's like I get kind of angry seeing what the United States says about Belarus, and and the one strange thing is, it's much different than China, because I've met a lot of Chinese people here, and all the Chinese love China, and like in Belarus, it's like the people are brainwashed. It's from the West and social media, and they're thinking that it's so much better in the West. And on our show, we try to show them what it's really like in the West. You've got, I when I was in Frankfurt, you see people shooting up drugs on the streets, and like Dave said, and then there's garbage, and then when they have a protest in Belarus, it's global news, and they show it all the time, and yet you're seeing these, and I just saw these things in Argentina, and and there's huge protests, and it's like endless protests in Paris, but that's but when there's a protest here, oh, it's Lukashenko, they got this thing, to try to, and just like they said, they want to overthrow the government. Victoria Nuland, she announced, what was it, some months ago, said, we're still trying to do regime change in Belarus. And then I'm starting to think, well, why? What does Belarus do? Are they attacking anybody? What are they doing to their neighbors? Nothing like that. And it's just like they want control of Belarus because they want to use that to get control of Russia. And I just cannot believe
and since living
their way
here,
of thinking.
Yeah, and since living here, of course, now we're thinking, okay, all the things we heard about China is probably bullshit as well, right?
Yeah.
Right? Or this other place, as you know, Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, bullshit, right? Libya, bullshit, right?
And I'm starting to think now North Korea is probably a lot, because they're really bad,
Because, we always hear in the West with you, I saw your show the other day about social credit system, and I think you said you asked people around the area and they go, what, do you want a credit card? Because here it's just social credit system. In China, they control you here, they control you there, constant. And also the economy is going to collapse in China all the time.
Yeah, I've been hearing that for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. They're about to collapse.
Oh, there's a city and nobody lives in the city, and
they're about to collapse. Yeah.
Yeah, let me answer the one about the city. So China doesn't believe in going and ripping up its roads to, let's say, because of poor city planning, or maybe, for example, a third runway that we're still waiting for in Heathrow that's never been built. The country, it pre-builds cities in advance. Each year, it pre-builds a city of the size of Chicago. You've got to remember, 19 million Chinese babies are born every year. It's a country that looks into the future. Outside of Beijing, probably an hour and a half, they're pre-building a city called Chongqing, and this is a super mega city. They're pre-building it. Of course, some uneducated journalists from the BBC will probably head out there while the streets are empty, while there's no one there, stand in the middle of the street and say, "Hey, look behind me here, another failed project." And then what it's going to happen is 2 or 3 years later, when it fills up, guys like me are going to go there and call the British Broadcasting Corporation bullshit. And this is what happens. We have to also understand that, you know, some of this instability and some of this, you know, these hit pieces on these cities are well orchestrated. I will still say that the Americans are, and the Canadians also are, and for some part, Europeans are very good at propaganda. The last thing they want to do is to show success in other nations, you know, prosperity moving forward in other nations, because they have to convince over the next 10 to 20 years that their civilians of those countries are going to have to adjust to a lower standard of living, regardless of what we think it is happening right before our eyes. Now, people might say, well, what do you mean, Alex? The economy is doing well. Really? How's your mortgage rate? Did you reset your mortgage lately? How is that inflation going? How is that $13 for a pound of chicken, or $12 for a pound of bread, or these property taxes? They'll say, well, the Chinese don't really own their homes. They buy on leased land. Well, stop paying your property taxes for a year in North America. See who really owns your home,
exactly.
Right? So it's these things that really, we are used to many things. And you gentlemen said, you know, it's frustrating because what you hear about Belarus, or, you know, what are we hearing about China? But how much farther back can we actually go now and dial back in history and say, wait a minute, was this war really what it was supposed to be about? Was, you know, the breakup of Yugoslavia, did we really get the truth on that? Because I don't think we did.
No.
And if we even dial back even more, how long has this propaganda game been going on? How long has this, let's go in, let's destabilize a country, let's strip it from its assets. Ukraine, I don't care what people are saying about this nation at the moment. It's gone. On paper, it's gone. No one spends $500 billion and expects everybody to kiss and make up and say, okay, somebody owns those railway lines when this is all over. Somebody owns those pipelines under the ground. Somebody owns those farms, those infrastructure, those airports, those mineral rights. Those are gone. You don't come up with $500 billion to defend a nation without there being some serious consequences. So here's what they're trying to do here with China. They're saying, right, let's bring Taiwan into this. Now, the average Chinese person, you know, it's one China. It's one China. I mean, Taiwan is part of China. Anyone that ever tells you that Taiwan is an independent country, just ask them, well, which member represents Taiwan in the United Nations? Oh, that's right. They don't have a seat there. It's the People's Republic of China that has a seat in the United Nations, because they are the only recognized government that represents this country. So is there animosity between people? No, they're brothers and sisters. They deeply care about Taiwan, but they also have patience. Now, I want to add to this. Yes, there will be reunification. When? I don't have a magic ball. but it will happen. Most audibly, it will happen peacefully, just like the handover in Hong Kong happened peacefully. But think about it for a moment. Is China, this closed off communist country where you have to fear the government? Well, if you arrive in Hong Kong, you will see that the Special Administration Region, SAR, has very good tax benefits for its civilians, has excellent hospital care. Yes, of course, real estate is quite pricey. International businesses benefit by the tens of thousands that have set up there. There's a lot of tax loopholes, a lot of low really tax levels. The passport is quite good. For most Hong Kongers, there's a bright future. A few years ago, the media said no. All these people want out. No, 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 no. You just have to watch someone like Daniel Dunbarow's videos that spent years in Hong Kong to tell you that what the media ran with the headlines is what really was. There was instability going on there, but what was causing it? And it was the infiltration of the non-government organizations, getting into the school books,
usual,
getting into the universities, and enticing these young kids to go out and wreak havoc. The whole time, the People's Liberation Army stationed in Hong Kong never came out. They didn't have to. The Hong Kong police handled it. They only came out, I think, to help clean up some of the stuff that was going on there. But to the average viewer, you might think, China, big bad China. This is a country that has, we'll call it a tax haven. I'll call it Hong Kong, pretty much a tax haven. And a quick ferry ride away has another region called Macau.
Mm-hmm.
And Macau has a gambling industry twice the size of the state of Nevada. I bet you people didn't know that, yes, Chinese can go to Macau and gamble.
Yeah, a lot of the casinos from Vegas are there, isn't it, Macau?
Right, and the Americans are benefiting it. So enough of this rhetoric of China's overcapacity, dumping products on the American market bullshit. Right behind me here is a shopping mall with pretty much every American brand that you can imagine, pumping out that American brand to the Chinese who consume it, but they're not saying, gee, America's dumping their burgers and dumping their coffees onto us. No, they're good Chinese. They come to pretty good coffee. Okay. Well, okay. Thank you, Mr. Steve Jobs. We'll still buy your iPhones. But the moment that you get involved on a political level where you start to insult the citizens of the country and you start to target their companies, for example, Huawei, when you throw the executive and the owner's daughter in prison in Canada under house arrest, I'm going to tell you, the nation says, okay, you've crossed the line now. And that's where it comes to where the Chinese say, you know what? We didn't mine iPhones, but we're okay. We're gonna give Huawei another shot. And the Huawei mobiles, even though they've been under sanctions, they've thrown their executives in the jail, try to extradite them on trumped up BS charges. The company is coming out on the other side now and saying, we can handle this. You're cutting us off from these chips? No problem. We will make progress. The entire nation gets behind these countries and companies. And it's interesting. That is the spirit of the Chinese people. They understand that, we use that word development, even though infrastructure-wise, this country is very, very advanced in high-speed rail. Most of the rails, high-speed rail, there's over 60,000 kilometers tracks that are laid down already. Most cities, between the city of me and Chengdu, I think Chengdu is about 20 million It's 400 kilometers away, but it'll take you an hour and 7 minutes by a high-speed rail. It's quite affordable as well. So imagine if that comes to your country. Imagine if you lived in, I don't know, for example, North America, and you could meet your mom halfway for coffee in an hour and a half on a bullet train that went 350 kilometers an hour, didn't break the bank to get on it, arrived on time, and departed on time, and was safe. So we do see the advancements here in China with technology. We also see them in infrastructure, buildings, and bridges. But that word development, that means the development in the, I think, really working here in media, it means the development of the individuals. And that means they're developing. Now, 20 years ago, China was nobody in the mobile sector. Well, now there's somebody. They were nobody in the new energy vehicles. Now there's somebody. And I'm seeing something in media. China's nobody in media yet. But in 10 years,
airlines,
this company and country and
soon.
Airlines, yeah, C919 or something like that.
Yeah.
In media, this country is going to know how to push back and fight back. They're not there yet, but in a decade, they're going to be able to turn the media back on what used to be the propaganda machine out of America. But I agree with you guys. You know, it's complex, but something drives people like me and you to leave our countries. Can I ask you, gentlemen, what country you guys are from?
I'm from Australia,
I'm from the U.S.,
but I lived in London 10 years before here.
and I lived in the Caribbean for 20 years before, and then before that, I lived about 20 years in Germany. So I'm kind of Dave's more of a cosmopolitan than I am. He's been everywhere, and every continent, you name a country, Dave's probably been there, no matter how obscure it sounds. But
so, can I ask you what made you guys leave your nations?
For me, in Australia, if you want to make anything of yourself and make some money, you got to leave the country. I left in 1998, and I went to Alaska, and then from there, moving around. So, the reason I'm living here now is for the past 15 years, married to a Belarusian, and we living in London, going backwards and forwards. And then the city's just getting worse and worse and worse, and prices going up and up and up. So we decided that's it. We're here now.
I left because I like German. I studied a lot of German history, and I liked German culture. And I was there in the military in the 80s, the Cold War. Worked for the commanding general, and I got quite a history, but I could get into that sort of thing. And then my wife is Belarusian. So, and she couldn't work there. They said, no, you can't work here. You can only be a cleanup lady or something like that. So we moved to St. Vincent and the Grenadines because they, it's a small island. That's where Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, was filmed and all. And we stayed there, and I started, I'm a dental technician as well. And then I got into the coffee, as a coffee farmer, coffee producer and all. And I came up with a very, very good coffee that a lot of celebrities drink I had to sell it because I had to leave that country because the prime minister, apparently, I think he made a deal with maybe the World Economic Forum or something, so he can get on being the smallest country in history to be on the United Nations Security Council. And so it was to vaccinate. And he was trying to, a lot of jobs, if you don't vaccinate, you lose your job. Started with this, this profession, public transport, nurses, teachers, all this kind of stuff. And, and then he said 90% vaccinated, he's going to get that. And the crunch was coming. It's before Omicron, and, the airlines, you can't fly unless you've been this and that. So we were thinking, yeah, we were planning on kind of moving anyway because of the high crime level there. And then we decided we have to cut it short, like by a couple of years. We didn't quite have enough money to what we really wanted because I don't have pensions or nothing. And so we left early, and luckily we did as well because then they stopped, we shipped our things, and then you can't get a container. But normally I didn't want to get the shot because I have a history of blood clots in my family, and a lot of people getting blood clots from that, and I didn't want to take that chance. And And I said, "Oh, I'm getting out." And so we moved to Belarus because there's no
There was
mandatory
no
vaccination,
there was no mandates here for masks, for
masks or
vaccination,
vaccinations,
nothing.
things like that.
Lukashenko just said,
But he's a dictator, and
yeah,
he takes. I mean, think about that. They're not dictators when they lock you up in the West and they make you wear a mask and they make you get a shot, and things like that. But this guy's a dictator when he doesn't make you do any of that stuff.
yeah. All they did here was they just listed everything like, here's all the things that may happen to you. That's it.
They did kind of push vaccines.
Treated you as an adult. That's about essentially it, was it?
Yeah, but and then I went to Germany. I think in 2021 in June or something. I came in December 2021, and then 2022, I believe, was it 22? Anyway, going there, and then I was taking like a train ride, and then I didn't realize it, but everybody's wearing a mask, and I wasn't wearing a mask because I'm used to not wearing a mask over here, and it's like, wow, this is some crazy stuff. And then I thought, oh gosh, and I don't even know if I had a mask or something. But anyway, it's that's one reason why we left. Is it's actually more freedom here.
And
There was also
here you can
there was
walk at 3 o'clock in the morning with money hanging out of your pocket, and you're not going to get robbed.
No rapes, no robberies,
No.
all kinds of
There's
stuff.
no homeless on the street. There's no drug people on the street.
Yeah,
It's clean.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was no vaccination mandate here in China as well.
Oh, what happened? What I don't know. I think it was Shanghai, and supposedly I remember seeing videos. It might have been false as well, and they showed people screaming out of their windows in Shanghai because they're all locked in or something. I think that was even after the main bout of coronavirus.
Now, Chinese can complain. They're allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Where people say, well, they have no voice. Yeah, they did have a voice. They were pissed off. They were pretty angry that they were, we'll call it lockdown, right? Lockdown is a very kind of, we'll call it an unpleasant word, okay? How can I explain this? We went through a 21-day lockdown here in Chongqing, but it's not what you think. And yeah, Shanghai went through some very, very hard days, but there's a reason for the way things worked, and there's a reason why some problems happened. We have to remember, and there's a very good documentary that I think everyone should watch. It's still ranked 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if you guys follow Rotten Tomatoes. It's a video
Movie
review site for movies.
I know what it is. Yeah.
It's rated 100 for a documentary on there, 100%. It's been there at that rate for 4 years now. This is probably one of the most extraordinary documentaries that you can watch about this pandemic. And I think you guys should watch it. And I'll tell you why. Day one of when this virus hit here in China, I was here in Chongqing. Not just about 2 weeks before it hit, I was in Chongqing and headed back to Thailand. But Wuhan Hospital was, I don't really want to say it was the first recorded one, but let's just say a lot of people that were getting sick during the start of this pandemic happened. And it just happened to be so that, and here, remember, this is a country that most people think is closed off to society. You can't go out and film bullshit. We can film anywhere you want. In fact, there's probably more people filming stuff going on than any major city in the world. Well, they allowed a camera crew in there to document what was going on because they were blown away with what was happening. And this camera crew filmed for 76 days. That's how long the Wuhan lockdown was, 76 days. They filmed everything. And they showed this play out in this documentary. And I'm going to tell you, when that virus hit China, there is so much respect for the people of that city, and it was terrible. You just got to see this documentary. It's terrifying because the fear in these people's minds
Mhm.
were, "Uh-oh, this is huge. This is kill," and no one knew really at the time how to handle it.
The whole
Now,
world was in
Elon
fear,
Musk,
of course.
what's that?
The whole world was in fear. Even I was like,
Right.
it's like, oh, and it's actually, I think the virus was worse at the beginning, and then it,
Yes.
got more and more and more, gentle. But,
Right.
we all
So
probably overreacted anyway.
Elon Musk had called the Wuhan health authorities and said, "Guys, can you tell us? Can you tell us how to deal with this?" And the health authorities were saying, "Listen, we don't necessarily think ventilators are good.
No
They are
kidding.
not, but it's an issue." And they said, some of it is affecting lungs. It's destroying the lungs. And anyway, what Elon got for advice um, was pivotal because it really showed that the Chinese were open to try to understand what was going on. So the country looked at these people in the city of Wuhan. The city of Wuhan is bigger than London, by the way.
Wow.
And that city went into massive lockdown. And the country looks at Wuhan as the city that sacrificed it for everybody. Okay. And there's a lot of deep respect for people from that city. When you hear Wuhan here, people are just like, wow, okay, Jesus. So what happened is quickly after that, the government started to come up with a model on how to try to contain this. And I was living in Thailand at the time, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, for the first 4 or 5 months, Thailand kept saying, we have no cases, no cases. Everyone's fine, no cases, no cases. And they thought that they were the top dog, and they let their guard down, and then they got smoked. And my last 10 months in Thailand, I cannot remember one shop, one restaurant, or anything that was allowed open for 10 months. Nothing was open. I mean, nothing. Not even 7-Elevens. There was an alcohol ban that eventually came in. Then there was quarantines inside buildings, which is understandable, but all swimming pools, massage places, shopping malls, restaurants, bars, clubs, pubs, restaurant, everything closed. Banks closed.
Wow.
Mobile shops all closed. And you started to see these companies go to the wall, just falling over, bankrupt, gone, out of business, for rent. See you next year. We won't be here. We're done, or out of business. And most of the Thais, they either moved up to the small villages where they used to and made their life a lot simpler to try to get through this. Well, the government did nothing. And it was quite terrifying. And I was contacted by a company that was watching my content from China, and they said, come to China. I said, no, that's okay, guys. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and not really, why would I go to China? I said, I'm relaxed in Thailand. I've been retired for 20 some years. So, I moved from Thailand. I was living in Monaco, Monte Carlo for about 17 years and just kind of chilling out. And I started a show on the weekends as the pandemic started on my YouTube channel called Let's Talk China. And every week it started to grow. And I started to see the pain and feel the pain from Chinese people. We're saying, Jesus, we need your voice. And the show kept growing, and more people kept watching, and more collaborations, and live streams like we're having now. We started to be a voice for China. The media companies kept calling me, saying, we need a hand here. We really need help. And I looked at my wife, and my wife says, you haven't been working for a company for a couple of decades. Give it a shot. They need your help. Go help them. So I came to Chongqing in the middle of the pandemic, and I thought I would see my wife a couple of weeks later. But the moment I got here is where they turned it. They shut it down a little bit more, and pretty much locked the country down. And I didn't see my wife for a year.
Oh.
A year later, and inside China, for most part, everything was open. Where in Thailand, everything was closed. Now, I mean, it was strange because I remember getting to China and saying, I can have a beer, I can have a burger, I can say hi to people, I can go to a movie, I can go to the what? So it was like, well, why? I thought this place was locked down. It said the country is locked, but not down. Manufacturing is, they've got to keep the world going. So it was bizarre because I thought, well, I had this impression that this place was, in massive lockdowns, and people upset. And we're in a city of 32 million. Now, I quickly started to understand that there was a system in place here. And it's quite remarkable what was happening here for, I guess, 2 years while I was here during the pandemic. And I'll give you an example. So in the second year, my wife eventually got here, and it was on it was like a diplomatic plane she was on with a bunch of other people. We managed to get her in here. Very strict. Pre-quarantine in Bangkok for 5 days. Even before she got on the plane, she had to quarantine in the city first, even though she lived in Bangkok. And she had to pre-quarantine there. Then when they got here into China, they were 14 days quarantine, and then she could come see me. But she was, pleasantly surprised that everything was open here as well. But here's where things got interesting. China strategy was the long game here. And they said, we need this strain to continue to weaken. It's got to weaken, it's got to weaken, it's got to weaken. So I think we heard names like Omicron and Delta and all these names as it was getting, as the pandemic was getting into third and fourth gear. There was nobody in the city that was getting the virus. Now you say, well, how in the hell is that possible in the city of 32 million that no one was getting the virus? Well, we were given free COVID tests pretty much every couple of days. We're not talking about the cheap ones. We're talking about the very expensive, the nucleic acid COVID tests, right? The Whoppers, the big expensive ones that you used to need to get before you get on an airplane, the $100 ones. But this was all free. Now, these COVID testing centers were pretty much on every second street corner, everywhere in the country. Okay. Imagine every drugstore, every 7-Eleven, every Family Mart or whatever these short stores are called, Special K's or whatever. Imagine all those stores are COVID testing centers. And what happens is they give you an application on your phone. And your phone was connected to a countrywide COVID system. Now, of course, you might say, well, Big Brother's monitoring me. If Big Brother cares about what Alex does on a Wednesday night at 10 o'clock, all the power to Big Brother. Okay, I don't care. But what this application did was you would scan your code, the code would scan back and say, okay, they would put a swab in your mouth, you'd walk away. 4 hours later, your phone would be immediately updated, giving you a green code that said 72. Now that 72 means that there's certain establishments that if you had a code less than 24 hours, they wouldn't let you in. But if you had 25 or 37 hours, it would let you in. You'd be pretty much green lighted for 2 or 3 days. It was designed to entice you to renew, okay? Renew the test. And as you were renewing this test, they managed to understand if the virus was spreading or where it was spreading. Now, the moment that somebody tested positive,
Hmm.
That person would be either A, quarantined in their home, quarantined in the hospital, or taken to a quarantine facility if there was a major outbreak. Now,
Hmm.
what happens is if you were in that shopping mall, your code on your phone would turn yellow. And that would mean that you were near contact with somebody that had the virus. And that yellow, then you'd have to go to the COVID booths, which are plentiful, get retested, and then your phone would turn green again. Okay. And this system continued to go over and over and over. And it was working. And you would wonder, how on earth did this country pay for this and do it? Well, what we started to talk about at the start of this discussion was party members, the 100 million plus party members in this country. They volunteered, all of them, to pretty much test, track, help people in need. If your building was in quarantine, the government would provide food for everyone for free to deliver it to their houses. If it's 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, like Shanghai or whatever districts, they would do it. And then they had the possibility to say, okay, wait a minute. This virus is in this part of the city. So let's quarantine just that section of the city and allow the rest of the city to operate as normal. And let's quarantine it. And that worked. For most part, it worked. But then we get down into 2023, where pressure was mounting from civilians in the country, where they said, Jesus, when is this going to be over, guys? All these other countries are open. What's going on here? And the government was under some big pressure here. Businesses were saying, come on, let's get this airline business going. We got to make some money. And the government says, yeah, but, I definitely wouldn't want the job of being responsible for 1.5 billion people. No thanks. So it went on, and the people were getting very annoyed. Then the lockdown in Shanghai comes. Then the lockdown in Chengdu comes, city of 20 million. Then the lockdown of Chongqing comes, city of, and it was a lockdown. It was like, nope, you're not leaving your apartment. Forget even going. You can leave the apartment to go get tested and then come back. We will bring the food to your door. Compliments of, government. Okay. So my wife and I think we stayed at home 21 days. It was interesting. It really taught me that I got a great marriage. And I'm sure it caused some other couples some interesting moments. But what was interesting is the government knew they were under pressure. And they said, damn it, how are we going to do this? More research, more decisions, more government meetings, high levels, senior levels, senior leader levels, executive meetings. And what do we get? How are we going to get out of this? What are we going to do? So the government said this pretty much, not directly, but it said, you guys want this open. We're going to open it. But before we open it, we advise that you go out and you buy fever medication. You're going to get these symptoms. If you do catch the virus, this is what's going to happen. We've taken care of you. We've sacrificed the bloody economy for 3 years to save your lives. We're going to do everything we can. But you want it open? Okay, we're going to open it. We're almost ready. Everyone's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Well, we're a couple more days, guys. It's going to be open. And then they lifted it countrywide. And guess what happened? In my building, in my work, everybody got the virus within 24 to 48 hours. And I looked at my wife and I said, wait a minute. Everybody's got it. Like everybody was getting it around the city and other cities. And it said one thing to me, that whatever measures this country was doing, even though many people didn't like it, but it, for most part, guys, it did allow its citizens here to live a normal life during it. kind of similar to Belarus, but I would say more strict in regards to trying to contain it. Um, Everybody got it, and it proved to me that whatever mechanisms they were doing allowed this country to come out of it, but with a softer landing than, instead of saying 2020, 2021, just let it rip. So the country did learn something about its technology and its software and its applications, that it did indeed for sure save lives. I don't know what would have happened if this would have ran wild in 2020. I'm not a doctor, but I think I'm going to use that movie 76 Days, pretty potent at the start.
Yeah.
Was China perfect? No. Did they make mistakes? Yeah, they did make mistakes. But for most part, what we saw from the Western media was, oh, wait till China opens. There's going to be 20 million people dying. There's going to be hundreds of million people toast. Look at that. There's bodies in the streets in Beijing. There's not enough people in the crematorium to, that never happened.
Yeah. Well, the way I'm looking at it is probably at the very beginning, maybe this was a stronger virus, I would say. And immediately, as anybody who was taken biology paid attention, and not like some fake like Fauci who was just telling. I think at the very beginning he might have been truthful and honest, but then he started coming out with fake. He was the opposite of science. He was coming out with fake stuff and saying, oh, this, but as normally every virus, starts to weaken over time, it mutates and it wants to spread. I'm not a virologist either, but, when you're kind of scared at the beginning, I was kind of scared. And then I said, oh gosh, but I lost some weight. So, they're talking about people, this, but it only took me a couple of weeks. And then I started realizing there was these Seventh-day Adventist doctors in California that started compiling the data and saying, that this, we're getting it from these hospitals. And then they took them down immediately. They got 1 million views in like less than a day. And, they were compiling data from all sorts of probably Seventh-day Adventist doctors all over the country and finding out that this was all fake information. And I don't know, it makes you wonder, why is the United States really pushing this? And the whole world was actually doing this. To me, it was a really strange time. And I think maybe China was freaked out. I don't know. And everybody was pointing their finger at China and saying, China did it, like Trump, of course, China, the China virus, and, things like that. And nobody's even sure of that. Some say, oh, maybe it started in Italy or maybe it started in the United States. The research certainly did. When you start looking at all this stuff, it's just all, how the United States does this stuff. They I think it's called muddying the waters in propaganda to try to make everything look like it's not really what it is, or, and trying to find the real truth, is kind of difficult. But,
I
anyway.
don't think governments are ever going to get away with what they put everybody through in the last few years. That is never going to happen again. If they ever tell us to deal with something like this again.
Our last guest said the same thing.
I won't deal. Sorry?
Our last guest, he's also very well known. It's John O'Looney. He was the funeral director that, was taking these things out of the veins. You probably saw those videos too, and that they were all clogged up. They couldn't pump the, I don't know if you call it embalming fluid or whatever through because the veins were all clogged up. And it was from the vaccines, of course. But, it's just I'm not, like I said, I'm not a scientist, but, you can kind of, the one thing that is you can't trust the Western governments as well, coming from the U.S. anyway, the puppet governments of the U.S. and the U.S. itself. So, I don't know what I'm going to do if they come up with another pandemic, which they're promising to do. So I don't know. I'll stay here.
That's an interesting question. I think that all of us, maybe I don't want to speak for the whole panel here, but they're not going to do this to us anymore. I mean, what we went through, and I wouldn't say just the Western countries, but Thailand, I want to bring up Thailand because I remember going to the airport and I'm looking at the runway and saying, how in the hell can you shut down every single country in the world? Global trade, there's going to be a price for this. And I think, you guys being very smart, positioning yourself in Belarus, uh, compared to what is going on outside of Belarus, Russia, China. I'm sure there's some other countries that are protected as well from the BS, but uh, these other countries are almost. I don't think I could move back to Canada and
No.
adjust to society back there anymore, because I've just seen so much bullshit that uh, I'd be a pretty miserable guy back there. And I admire what you guys have done. I think that Belarus is an absolutely fantastic place to be. Um, as you're describing it earlier in the program, talking about seeing people going out, enjoying life, uh, dressing up nice, not being having to worry about being robbed, not having to be worried about. I mean, things that people shouldn't worry about, but they do.
It's funny.
And
Every now and again I leave my phone in the car and I go, oh shit, and I go back and it's still there. It's like the window hasn't been smashed.
Yeah, I even at work, where I'm
like,
working, we have a lot of, I don't know how many
Well,
people,
you drop your wallet in McDonald's.
know,
You go back 3 hours, 4 hours later, it's still there. No
yeah,
one's touched it.
yeah, like you
It's
can
full.
leave your bag. People leave their cell phones and their like the wallet or something. People don't steal your wallet. It's like, what the heck? In the United States, even any workplace, you really got to be worried your wallet's going to be gone or or anything. You can leave a bag of money probably sitting on a street corner in Belarus, and it would be there the next morning when you come back. It's just
how long have you guys been there? How long for?
I was coming here twice a year from 2008 until I moved here full time. So I got my residency card or green card, whatever you want to call it, last year. So I just finally had enough. Like I said, we'd come here summer and Christmas. It's only a 2.5 hour flight from London, and then that was it. Now we're here, moved everything, sold everything.
I've been here since December 2021. I came here earlier in about 2001, and then I would have chosen the West over Belarus. And then I came, I think around 2006 or 7, and I said, wow, this place has really improved. It's almost like Germany. And then, I hadn't been here then since 2007. And, with all that Corona stuff and all that, I took the leap and came here, with my wife in 2021, and it's like walking around, I'm thinking, damn, this place is better than Germany. The streets are all paved. All the buses are now new. They had some beater buses that they got from Germany or something back in those days. Now they build the buses in Belarus, in Minsk. Matter of fact, right by where I live, and like the food, and of course the beer is rated often as the best beer in the world. There's really great beer here, and like the bread back in those days wasn't really so great, because I like really good bread. That's one reason why I like Germany. And now the bread is better than in Germany, and it's like everything is just so good here. Chocolate, and I mean, it's like I'm trying to find things that are bad. It's
and the food tastes of food. Like you get strawberries and actually taste of strawberries and they smell of them and all that.
and it's like no GMO, and I don't think they put high fructose corn syrup. I think they actually use sugar when they use sweeteners and things like that. It's they try to do everything right here.
And Belarus is going to be a member of the SCO this year as well. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So they joined that this year as well.
So would you say that if we could look at Belarus, I mean, what would the standard of living be like there? What compared to, let's say, the countries that you guys came from before? I mean,
oh boy, you ought to see my apartment. Dave calls it a castle, and you get very high quality things like if you get into an older apartment built during the Stalin times, and it's like the pine floors, everybody, it's like really, they're like oak, they're really hard and they're really high quality, and it's pine, and some guy there is some people like maybe in the building trade, they try to rip you off a little bit. The guy wanted to take our floor. They said it's junk and all that, but he was actually going to take it and sell it. And so we got kind of conned, and originally from the guy that was
the biggest complaint here by most people is the wages are low.
Yeah, the wages,
Okay.
but the
What
costs
would
are low.
the average wage be? What would
Yeah,
the average wage be?
around 500 to 1,000 rubles a month, which is
No,
low.
no, no, dollars, you mean.
Oh, dollars. Yeah, sorry, dollars. That's it.
But you got to realize, say my apartment, we
Yeah.
have an apartment, 84 square meters, and
Right.
the entire cost of the apartment, and you better be sitting down, the entire, I'm talking about, say, cable TV and your maintenance
Okay.
costs for your house, your electricity, your water, everything for your apartment. And you pay maybe $40 a month average.
Wow.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're
Fantastic.
saying 90 cents or something for the metro. Over here it's like 35 cents to go a metro trip.
Yeah, and petrol here compared to other places, I can fill up a 65-liter tank for $45 US. That's it. So so everything's
Mm.
low. Food quality is high. But the biggest thing we hear from people is the wages are lower because they think you make more money in the West, but they don't realize that
Mhm.
most of that's gone with rent and food. When in London, I was paying £2,500 a month for accommodation. So,
I think another thing is, we get the same here in China where people are saying, yeah, but the wages are higher in the West. Okay, yeah, the wages are higher in the West, but they don't have a 9.7% income tax like they do here. They
Wow.
don't have,
it's 13 here,
you
13
know,
flat rate.
Hmm.
right. So you have these things when you break down the tax structures and the cost of living, and what it costs to heat your place and internet and all that. Very clear who the winner is in all of these. And I think there's going to be a lot more people like us that, unfortunately, I wouldn't say just because of the standard of living, but also our values for people. Like I said, I am not compatible to go back to Canada. If I sit in a bar and have a drink in Canada, I will probably be brought into a geopolitical conversation that will be hit with some serious pushback, which I will not back down from either. So that's what I'm saying. I'm probably not a compatible person. Where it did happen to me when I was last in Canada, where people would say, where are you going? Oh, okay. When I go back to Asia, I'm going to go to China. China? Why China? Or I used to tell people, yeah, where would you want to go on vacation, Alex? Oh, fancy maybe Belgrade for the weekend, or um, okay, summer of 2016-17, I met Patrick Lancaster in Transnistria.
Hmm. Wow.
So we went through Transnistria together and spent a few days there. Hell, I'm up for some KTV in Pyongyang, North Korea, if people fancy that. So I think when we have been able to get out of a system that has been so, I actually feel bad for some people that can't uh, get out of the system. We are lucky. I think there's not a day that goes by where I say, wow, how did I get out of this system? How did I get out of this system where,
Yeah.
it was a lot easier back in, where when I was born in the 70s. Um, you know, College tuition wasn't that expensive. Mind you, I still had to pay a student loan for many years after that. But if I would have stayed in Canada, I would have got into a system of 20, 30-year mortgage, maybe 40-year mortgage
Wow.
now.
Yeah. Gosh.
Uh, massive, massive property taxes. I'll give you an idea. Before I left Canada, in my last 2 years in Vancouver, my property taxes back then were $6,000 a year in 1996. Okay. On the place that I lived in,
Wow.
my condo fees were $4,800 a year. So just to hit those taxes at a pre-tax level, and I was in probably a 45% tax bracket in Canada. It doesn't take much to hit that. So when you're in that tax bracket, that 20 or that 10 that you have to pay in taxes and condo fees is actually 20 pre-taxed. So I remember living in Vancouver, having my car broken into 3 times, which is normal, par for the course for the average Vancouverite person. Apartment thefts, vandalism, homelessness. And I just said, this is exhausting. This is absolutely exhausting. How can I continue to go on? And the weather got me down a bit, and I just said, okay, I'm going to move to Europe, and never looked back, and eventually migrated over here to Southeast Asia and China.
Wow.
But you have to see the system. It's designed in a way where we have individuals now. Here's what's waiting for you in, and I'll give you my Canadian point. And if there's some viewers that disagree with me, fine. I'm willing to accept that we might not come to an agreement on everything. But here's what's waiting for the average young man that gets out of high school or university. First, he has to apologize, because being a man in North America is just shameful. And he must
white
apologize, white man, and must apologize for